May 16, 1943. 23:28 hours. Over the Möhne Dam, Ruhr Valley, Germany. The Lancaster drops to 60 feet. Flak bursts blossom black against a pale moon. Tracers rise in red arcs, slow and deliberate, searching for aluminum skin. Inside the cockpit, the air smells of cordite and sweat. Pilot officer holds the yoke steady as the altimeter needle trembles. Too high and the weapon will shatter. Too low and they will. The dam wall looms ahead, a slab of shadow stretching across the reservoir, like a cliff laid on its side. Two white spotlights converge on the water below the bomber's belly, their beams crossing to mark the precise release height. The engineer calls out the speed, 230 miles per hour, not one less. Behind them, in the bomb bay, the cylindrical mine spins backward at 500 revolutions per minute. You can feel the vibration through the fuselage, a strange weapon. No fins, no sleek nose, just a rotating mass of explosive, humming with intent. Steady, steady. The release button clicks. The bomb drops cleanly into moonlight, strikes the reservoir, and skips. Once, twice, 3 times. Each impact throws up a sheet of silver spray. It races toward the dam face, smacking against a stone before sinking into darkness. Then nothing. A heartbeat, and the water lifts. The explosion punches upward in a column of white fury, slamming against concrete with the weight of thousands of tons. The Lancaster claws for altitude as shock waves buffet its wings. Behind it, the reservoir roils like a living thing. Inside the cockpit, no one cheers. They circle back through flak and smoke to see if the wall has cracked. In the moonlight, it still stands. Scarred, smoking, but standing. This was never supposed to work. Months earlier, in a quiet office in England, a man with ink-stained fingers and the patience of an engineer stared at equations that most dismissed outright. Barnes Wallis was not thinking about heroics. He was thinking about pressure, about how water behaves when trapped, about how force concentrates beneath the surface where concrete is weakest. Conventional bombs could not breach the Ruhr dams. The walls were too thick, the torpedo nets too dense. Dive bombing was suicide. High-altitude bombing was guesswork. The industrial heart of Germany, powered by hydroelectric plants and cooled by reservoir-fed canals, seemed untouchable. So Wallis turned to physics. He studied how stones skip across ponds, how backspin creates lift, how rotational energy stabilizes trajectory. His solution was radical: a mine that would bounce over torpedo nets, strike the dam face, and sink to a precise depth before detonating. There, underwater, the explosion would transmit force directly into the structure. Colleagues called it fanciful. Some called it mathematically impossible. A bomb that behaved like a child's toy. Yet prototypes began to skip across test reservoirs in Derbyshire. Engineers measured spin rates, drop heights, airspeed tolerances. Too much backspin, and the bomb veered off. Too little, and it plunged uselessly. Every variable had to be exact. Precision became doctrine. To deliver such a weapon required a squadron willing to fly at treetop height in darkness. Enter No. 617 Squadron, newly formed under Wing Commander Guy Gibson. Young crews, hand-picked, they trained relentlessly, skimming English lakes at night, practicing low-level navigation by stopwatch and railway line. They learned to hold 60 feet by aligning twin spotlights mounted beneath the fuselage. When the beams converged on the water surface, they were at the correct altitude. It sounds simple. It was not. One gust of wind, one twitch of the hand, and the mission would fail. Back over the Möhne, searchlights now rake the sky in fury. Another Lancaster lines up. The flak intensifies, walking across the reservoir in measured bursts. The crew flies straight into it, because they must. No evasive maneuvers, no weaving, a straight run at the dam face. The second bomb skips, strikes, sinks. Another eruption. A crack appears, faint but visible, spidering across masonry. Water seeps through. In the cockpit, they see it. A thin line, a promise. Below, German gunners scramble, adjusting aim, unaware that beneath the surface, structural stress is compounding. Concrete flexes. Pressure builds. The reservoir pushes relentlessly against a wound that widens by the second, and then the wall gives. Not all at once. First a fracture, then a roar. A section of dam collapses inward, releasing a tidal force that surges down the valley with terrifying speed. Houses, factories, rail bridges lie directly in its path. From the air, it looks like ink spreading across parchment. The impossible has just happened, but the night is not over. 2 more dams wait in darkness. March 1943, 3:12 hours. RAF scamped in Lincolnshire, England. A low fog blankets the perimeter of the airfield. The damp chill clings to flight jackets and gloves. Mechanics move silently between rows of Avro Lancaster bombers, their black fuselages slick with moisture. The engines hum and idle, pistons twitching as if impatient to begin the impossible mission that will define the night. Somewhere beyond the airfield, the River Trent glimmers faintly under the moon, a silver thread snaking through the darkness. Its still surface becomes a laboratory for a weapon no one believes will work. The bouncing bomb. Barnes Wallis, tall and thin, coat collar raised against the cold, crouches beside a Lancaster's port wing. He traces a finger along the bomb cradle, inspecting the mechanisms that will spin a 9,250-pound shell backward at precise revolutions per minute. The mathematics of its flight are cruelly unforgiving. Too fast, and the bomb will skip past the dam. Too slow, and it will sink short. The angles, velocities, rotations, all must converge perfectly. Every detail has been calculated on paper. Yet paper cannot capture the treacherous variables of water, wind, and gravity. In the hangar, aircrew stand silently, faces pale in the dim red lighting, hands fidgeting with flight maps and altimeters. They have trained for low-level night flight over enemy territory, but nothing in experience prepares them for the aerial choreography demanded by this experiment. Flying a Lancaster at 60 feet over a lake in darkness is like balancing a piano on a pin, murmurs one pilot, his voice barely audible. His words hang in the air like smoke, tense and brittle. At 4 o'clock hours, engines roar to life. The ground shudders as propellers slice the fog. Lancasters taxi carefully along narrow tarmac strips, their navigation lights barely visible through the haze. Bomb aimers tighten straps, adjust gyroscopes, and rehearse timing in low whispers. Every crew member knows the risk. A miscalculation could mean not just failure, but death. Yet each man carries the unspoken thrill of daring something history has deemed impossible. The first practice drops take place over the small reservoirs of northern England. The water reflects a gunmetal sky as the Lancasters glide above, barely 10 meters off the surface. Crews watch the spinning cylinders approach, the bomb skipping like a stone cast by a precise hand. The impact creates concentric waves that ripple outward. Engineers time the splash with stopwatches. Observers in boats measure distance traveled, recording rotations per second, the arc of bounce, the eventual contact with the water wall. Chalk marks on the banks tally success. A whisper travels among the team. It's alive. Wallace steps back, eyes fixed on the rippling water, jaw tight. He mutters calculations to himself under breath, adjusting speed and release angle in real time. The physics is unrelenting. Slight misalignment and centrifugal force will betray the bomb. One misjudgment, and the device will either submerge prematurely or ricochet off course entirely. The crews repeat the run, each iteration building confidence but also mounting tension. Every success feels fragile, like holding glass between trembling fingers. In the next hours, the airfield becomes a theater of controlled chaos. Bombs are loaded, rotated to the exact rate, armed for timed detonation. Pilots practice the death-defying low approaches again and again. Ground crews monitor fuel, engine heat, and mechanical stress. Even minor wind shifts can alter the trajectory, and over these lakes, the night sky offers no forgiving margin. Clouds obscure reference points. Moonlight glances off the water at angles that confound the eye. Precision becomes an obsession. One crew almost loses a Lancaster to a misjudged turn. The port wing dips perilously, water spraying like frozen glass across the hull. A minor crash is avoided, but the lesson is brutal. Perfection is mandatory. Engineers make immediate adjustments, fine-tuning spin mechanisms, stabilizers, and release timing. Each measurement is meticulously logged. Each misstep cataloged for the next sortie. The airfield echoes with the low thrum of engines and the sharp clatter of drop tools. By dawn, several full-scale runs are completed. The bombs skip in perfect arcs, hitting target buoys placed to mimic dam walls. Waves spray upward, bouncing back toward the sky. Observers note distance, rotation, and water displacement. Some runs fall short, others sail too far. But enough succeed to confirm what Wallis has always known. Physics, when pushed to an extreme, can be persuaded to bend. The impossible is achievable. Flight crews huddle afterward, cold, exhilarated, and silent. Their eyes reflect the water they have mastered, the precision they have demanded of themselves. For the first time, the dream of turning a mathematical impossibility into a weapon is tangible. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolls. Its sound mixes with the hum of cooling engines, a reminder that the world outside the airfield continues in ignorance. Yet here, in this pre-dawn mist, the blueprint for a revolution in aerial warfare has been proven. Even as success glimmers in the mist, Wallis does not celebrate. He knows that the true test, flying these Lancasters against the Ruhr dams under fire in pitch-black nights, will be exponentially more difficult. Every calculation must hold under combat stress. Every crew must execute flawlessly, and the enemy, oblivious of the threat, will be waiting with reinforced concrete and machine guns. May 16, 1943, 22:45 hours. RAF Scampton, Lincolnshire, England. The airfield lies cloaked in a dense, almost suffocating night mist. The pale moon struggles to penetrate the haze, leaving long shadows stretching across the tarmac. Lancasters of 617 squadrons sit in rigid formation, black silhouettes hunch like predators in wait. The engines are cold, the propellers still, yet the air vibrates with anticipation. Crews huddle in small clusters, speaking in hushed tones, the occasional cough or rustle of canvas breaking the fragile silence. Every man knows that tonight, history will judge their courage and precision. Wing Commander Guy Gibson strides between aircraft, boots crunching on gravel, clipboard clutched tightly. His face is a mask of calm, though his eyes flicker with a mixture of anxiety and determination. Each crew member has memorized their roles to near perfection: pilot, bomb aimer, navigator, flight engineer, wireless operator, and gunners. The mission is unprecedented, the objective audacious. And yet, failure is a luxury none could afford. The Ruhr Valley dams are not just targets. They are the linchpin of Germany's industrial might. Their destruction could alter the war, but the path is fraught with peril. Mechanics make final checks, adjusting fuel lines, inspecting engine cowlings, and retightening bolts that vibrated loose during earlier trials. Spin mechanisms on the bouncing bombs are calibrated once more. Exactly 500 revolutions per minute, backward rotation. Timing is everything. Too early or too late, and the bomb will fail to skip. Each Lancaster bomb bay is a crucible of precise engineering, a suspended balance of mass, momentum, and human judgment. Outside the hangars, the river trend glimmers faintly, a spectral mirror reflecting the tension that hangs over the crews like fog. Inside the aircraft, the crews move with quiet, mechanical precision. Bomb aimers study calibrated sights, fingers brushing over gyroscopes and range tables. Pilots run through emergency procedures, mentally rehearsing evasive maneuvers through low clouds and treacherous terrain. Wireless operators check frequencies, confirming messages will transmit without interception. Each detail is drilled until it becomes instinct. No one speaks of fear. It exists, but it is buried beneath discipline, beneath a shared resolve to see the impossible realized. The briefing room is filled with the scent of ink, paper, and cigarette smoke. Wallis joins the pilots, his presence quiet but commanding. He speaks a trajectory, of skipping bombs across water, of angles and speed. "Think of it as a stone cast across a pond," he says, voice calm but sharp. But the pond is on fire, and the enemy is waiting at the far shore. His words strike both humor and dread. Eyes lock on him, absorbing the intricate formulas, imagining the bomb's arc, the moment it will touch water, the calculated distance it must travel to strike the dam. Each man visualizes the mission in exacting detail. Every movement, every calculation, is rehearsed in the mind before it must occur in reality. Outside, night deepens. The squadron gathers at the perimeter, engines now running, throbbing with a low, menacing rhythm. Crews climb aboard, adjusting harnesses and helmet straps, checking altimeters, and reviewing approach coordinates. Each Lancaster carries a single bouncing bomb, securely mounted, spinning in anticipation of release. Outside, the world is quiet, almost deceptively so. A fox rustles in the undergrowth. A distant train whistles faintly. These ordinary sounds contrast sharply with the extraordinary task about to unfold. As the aircraft taxi into position, Gibson conducts a final inspection, his eyes scanning each face, noting tension, fatigue, and determination. "Remember," he says, voice low but firm, "precision is everything. One mistake, and it will not just be a mission failure. It will be a disaster. Trust your instruments. Trust each other. Trust yourselves." His words hang in the night air, heavy with expectation, but also a spark of confidence. Crews nod silently, absorbing the gravity of responsibility while keeping fear in check. Takeoff begins. Lancasters accelerate down narrow runways, propellers slicing mist into turbulence. Night air presses against the fuselage, shaking instruments and rattling loose objects. Pilots maintain exact speed and altitude, skimming over hedgerows, fields, and shadowed waterways. The dark, undulating landscape of Lincolnshire transforms into an unfamiliar, threatening maze, each tree and ditch potential hazard. Crews are hyper-aware. One misjudged descent, one miscalculated turn, and they risk collision or fatal crash before reaching the continent. Once airborne, the Lancasters settle into formation. The engines hum steadily, propellers slicing fog like sharpened blades. Crew members adjust sights and dials, confirming the spin rate of the bomb, recalculating distance to target. Below them, the rivers glint in moonlight, ghostly and cold. Above, clouds threaten to conceal reference points, the same clouds that will obscure enemy flak batteries once they cross the North Sea. Every calculation must hold under conditions far more hostile than those of the test lakes. Every instinct honed over months of practice will be tested against the chaos of war. As they approach the coast, the squadrons pass over small villages, silent in sleep, unaware of the unprecedented mission slicing toward the heart of Germany. The blackened water of the Rhine and canals reflect the aircraft's lights faintly, echoing precision they must now maintain. The bouncing bomb, a mathematical marvel, is no longer a theory. It is a weapon of immense consequence, spinning in the night like a perfect, dangerous jewel. Yet even as they approach, a sense of foreboding tightens in the crew's chest. The calculated margins of error leave almost no room for human imperfection. The landscape of war, the rivers, the forests, the dams themselves, awaits them with silent menace. And across the channel, thousands. May 16, 1943, 1:12 hours, over the North Sea. The night air is thick with salt and mist, carrying a bitter chill that seeps into the bones of the Lancaster crews. The black silhouettes of the aircraft glide over restless waters, engines a deep, pulsing growl. Below, waves curl and crash against one another, reflecting the sparse moonlight in jagged streaks. Every ripple is a reminder they are no longer on home soil. The channel stretches ahead, a dark expanse separating the relative safety of England from the heart of Nazi-controlled Europe. Inside the cockpits, silence dominates. Radios buzz faintly with Morse code and the occasional clip command from Gibson. Pilots scan the horizon, searching for visual markers. A lighthouse, a break in cloud cover, the faint glimmer of a distant coastline. Bomb aimers recalibrate constantly, checking angles, speed, and altitude. The bomb in the bay spins steadily, a mechanical heartbeat that matches the tension in the crew. One miscalculation, one moment of distraction, and a weapon that could flood the Ruhr might instead fall short, exposing the aircraft to enemy fire or worse. The formation is tight, 3 Lancasters abreast, staggered slightly to avoid collision. Cloud layers shift unpredictably, threatening to obscure sightlines crucial for bomb release. Gibson leans forward in the cockpit, hands on throttle, eyes narrowing. "Keep altitude steady," he murmurs. 30 feet above the water, 30 feet. Pilots respond with subtle corrections, adjusting pitch and yaw with precise, almost imperceptible movements. The margin for error is vanishingly thin. Below them, the waves rise and fall like jagged steel. Each aircraft must skim the surface with flawless accuracy, every touch of the water planned in advance. The distant coastline of the Netherlands begins to emerge, a dark serrated silhouette. Enemy searchlights sweep the waters, probing for movement. Flak batteries, camouflaged within the tree-line, lie in wait. The crews tense, gripping controls and instruments with white-knuckled intensity. A single burst of gunfire could ignite a bomb, cripple a Lancaster, or scatter the formation before they reach the dams. Each man feels the weight of history pressing against his chest, the responsibility of the mission a tangible, almost physical burden. Gibson checks his instruments repeatedly. Altimeter, airspeed, spin rate of the bomb, compass heading. Everything must align perfectly. Flight engineers monitor engine temperatures and fuel pressure, aware that the channel's chill could conspire against them. Every movement is synchronized, rehearsed, yet the unpredictable nature of war leaves room for chaos. Yet, within this tension lies a strange rhythm. The hum of engines, the faint clatter of switches, the occasional rustle of parachute harnesses. It becomes almost meditative, a dance on the edge of disaster. As they cross the coast, the first flak bursts illuminate the night sky, tracers streaking upward like deadly fireworks. Pilots dive and weave instinctively, engines roaring to maintain altitude over the waves. Each burst demands a rapid calculation. Speed, angle, evasive maneuver, but always keeping the target in mind. Bomb aimers press against sights, their knuckles pale, eyes locked on the narrow strip of water that marks the approach to the first dam. This is the moment when theory meets execution. Wallis' mathematical brilliance is tested not in a laboratory, but in the cold, unforgiving darkness over enemy territory. The crew see the first markers. Small clusters of lights along the river, faint silhouettes of structures barely visible through the haze. The Moon Dam lies ahead, its concrete wall a looming monolith in the night. Anti-aircraft guns bristle along the perimeter, their barrels reflecting brief flashes from distant searchlights. The water is still, deceptively calm, masking the enormous force that lies behind it. Below, the reservoir waits like a coiled serpent, ready to unleash devastation when struck. Every heartbeat in the cockpits matches the bomb's revolutions, spinning toward its deadly trajectory. Gibson signals for the first aircraft to begin its approach. The Lancaster descends to the critical 30-foot altitude, its landing lights dim to avoid detection. The bomb aimer adjusts the sight, calculating speed, angle, and release point. Below, the dam's curvature rises into view, concrete cold and forbidding, the pinnacle of German engineering meant to resist any assault. The Lancaster's shadow stretches across the water like a phantom, the Engine's low growl blending with the distant hum of flak. Crew members hold their breath collectively, each aware that a single misstep could send them tumbling into death. The bomb hits the water with a precise mechanical skip, bouncing along the surface toward the dam. Splashes arc high, illuminated by flak bursts and moonlight, a surreal ballet of destruction. The aircraft pulls up sharply, engines screaming, flak shells exploding nearby, fragments whistling through the air. The crew watches as the bomb nears its target, calculating the final moments, praying that Wallis' design, that impossible calculation, will succeed. Moments stretch into eternity, a sequence of decision, reaction, and hope suspended above the water. Then impact, a deafening explosion, water and concrete erupting skyward. The reservoir heaves violently, waves lapping against the structure, beginning a process that will eventually flood the valley below. The crew is rocked by the shock wave, adrenaline surging. Gibson turns to the formation. Eyes meet eyes across the cockpits, silent acknowledgement of survival, success, and the dangers that remain. The first dam is breached, but the mission is far from over. The second, the Eder, awaits, guarded by darkness, flak, and the ever-present possibility of failure. Every man feels it, a mixture of triumph and dread. The impossible has begun, but the night is not yet won. Precision must continue, nerves must hold, and courage must endure. The channel behind them is empty, the path forward uncertain, the moment before them perilous. And somewhere in the darkness, German observers begin to realize that something extraordinary, terrifying, and unprecedented is underway. The first light of dawn has yet to touch the sky over the Ruhr Valley. It is still May 16th, 1943, and the aftermath of the Möhne Dam strike ripples across the dark waters. From the cockpit of Gibson's Lancaster, the reservoir appears almost placid, the moonlight fading into gray hues of early morning. Yet the water is no longer the gentle mirror it once was. It thrashes and swirls violently, pushed outward by the explosive force of the bomb. The dam, once a symbol of German industrial might, now quivers under the weight of a man-made flood. Inside the aircraft, the crew exhales collectively, a breath they've been holding since crossing the coast. The thrill of success is immediate, but so is the awareness that danger has not abated. Flak batteries along the river's edge respond with furious intensity, sending fire streaking through the sky. Shrapnel hisses past the fuselage, tearing at metal and paint. Gibson pushes a Lancaster into evasive maneuvers, banking sharply to avoid bursts of fire that explode just meters from the wings. The hum of engines, once a constant reassurance, now vibrates through the airframe with a threatening urgency. Bomb aimers check the trajectory of the spent weapon, noting the accuracy of the skip, the final impact, and the swelling waves that begin to rush toward the valley. Wallis' calculations, once dismissed as mathematical fantasy, have proven their worth in devastating reality. Each crew member feels a strange combination of awe and fear, aware of the historical significance of the moment, but equally conscious that survival depends on discipline and timing. Any misstep now, any misjudged angle or sudden gust, could send the aircraft into the cold, unforgiving water below. The valley itself is awakening to catastrophe. The Möhne's floodwater surges over its banks, consuming farmland, roads, and forests. Soldiers and workers stationed nearby are caught in the chaos, scrambling for cover as the torrent reshapes the landscape in real time. Trees snap and tumble. Vehicles are swept along. Buildings buckle under the hydraulic force. The scene is apocalyptic, a vivid testament to the destructive potential of precision engineering weaponized with human courage. From above, the valley looks like a living map of destruction, an illustration of both triumph and terror. Back in the Lancaster, Gibson signals to the other aircraft in the formation. "Eyes on Eder," he says, voice steady despite the tension. The next dam awaits, larger and more complex in curvature, demanding an even greater level of skill. The crews adjust instruments and recalibrate altimeters, airspeeds, and bomb spin rates. Every calculation is double-checked, every variable considered. Wallis notes, once theoretical diagrams in an engineer's study are now the blueprint for real-time action over enemy territory. The men are acutely aware that failure here can negate the hard-won success of Möhne and endanger not just themselves, but the mission's strategic purpose. Anti-aircraft fire continues to pepper the sky, forcing pilots into rapid evasive maneuvers. The night's adrenaline has given way to a cold, calculating intensity. Gibson leans into controls, eyes scanning the horizon for visual cues, radar echoes, and the subtle movement of flak bursts. The Lancaster slice through the mist, wings angle for maximum stability at low altitude, engines roaring as they skim perilously close to the water. Below, the reservoir reflects fragmented flashes of tracer rounds, the surface rippling from every shell that impacts nearby. The bomb aimer of the second Lancaster, Young, adjusts the sight. The Eder Dam is a more formidable target than Möhne. Its elongated crescent curves stretch across the valley, reinforced with thicker concrete, defended with more sophisticated flak positions. The Lancaster descends, 30 feet above the surface, wings level, engines throttled to maintain speed. Young calculates the release point, factoring in wind, airspeed, spin rate, and distance to target. The mental strain is enormous, the precision demanded almost impossible, yet he works with quiet determination. Every motion a result of countless hours of training and rehearsal. The bomb hits the water with perfect trajectory, skipping across the surface, each bounce a calculated defiance of gravity and expectation. Splashes arc high, illuminated by the intermittent flak bursts and the pale dawn light. The crew grips their harnesses as the aircraft banks sharply, engines screaming against the wind. Below, the bomb reaches the dam wall, impacting with tremendous force. Concrete shudders, small fissures forming as water begins to surge outward. The force of the explosion reverberates through the valley, a testament to the brilliance of Barnes Wallis' design and the courage of those flying it into mortal danger. Yet success is not absolute. Flak continues to fire with lethal intent, forcing the formation into rapid adjustments. One Lancaster is hit in the fuselage, engines faltering, smoke trailing from the wing. Gibson signals a wingman to cover as the stricken aircraft struggles to maintain altitude. Below, the valley begins to flood, and the full scale of destruction is revealed. Fields disappear underwater, buildings collapse, roads vanish into torrents. The crew feels a mixture of exhilaration and horror. They have accomplished what was deemed impossible. But the human cost, both in risk and potential collateral damage, is immediate and visceral. As the aircraft pull away from the Eder, the crews exchange silent acknowledgments, brief nods, and tight grips on controls. There is no time for celebration. The night is not yet done. The mission continues until all targets are struck and every aircraft is safely returned. Yet in that fleeting moment, a profound sense of accomplishment passes through each man. Against impossible odds, guided by precision, courage, and innovation, they have breached the dams. They have changed the course of the war, if only temporarily, and they have done so by dancing on the edge of death. And still, over the horizon, the morning mist conceals dangers yet unseen. Enemy fighters, alerted by the explosions, may be taking to the air. Flak batteries in the distance continue to search the skies. Every second of survival remains precarious. Every moment of balance between triumph and catastrophe. The men know they cannot afford complacency. Their journey back across the channel will demand every ounce of skill and nerve left within them. The Moan is breached, the Eder tested, and history is unfolding beneath their wings. Yet the night is far from over. The next challenge is the hardest yet, returning alive to England. The first gray light of dawn stretches across the English Channel, a pale veil over the turbulent waters. It is May 17, 1943, and 617 squadrons Lancasters are winging their way home from the Ruhr Valley, each aircraft carrying the fatigue, adrenaline, and quiet triumph of the night's impossible mission. The silence inside the cockpits is profound, punctuated only by the steady thrum of Merlin engines, the occasional creak of stress metal, and the soft hum of instruments still alive with the data of success. For the men aboard, this flight is a journey through a liminal space, neither battle nor respite, but a tenuous bridge between life and the stark reality of the war that waits beyond the horizon. Gibson peers over the nose, scanning the horizon for any sign of enemy aircraft. Intelligence had predicted minimal Luftwaffe response over the channel at this hour, yet instinct keeps his gaze sharp, every twitch of the stick met with calculated micro-adjustments. The Lancaster responds like a living organism, sensitive to the pilot's touch, its heavy frame cutting through low-lying clouds as if slicing through silk. Each man is acutely aware that, though the mission succeeded, the return flight is no less perilous. Anti-aircraft batteries may still fire sporadically along occupied France, and the unpredictable spring weather adds an extra layer of danger to navigation. Inside Gibson's cockpit, the crew is quiet but alert. Navigators check their maps and compasses repeatedly, their eyes flicking from the instruments to the horizon, try to reconcile dead reckoning with the faint coastline visible in the mist. The turbulence over the channel feels almost alive, gusts tugging at wings and rattling fuselages, reminding each man that the air itself can be an adversary. Somewhere below, waves churn and collide, echoing the chaos of the night's attack, a watery reminder of the destructive power they unleashed. The pilots maintain formation, each Lancaster a disciplined extension of the squadron, moving with precision through the gray expanse. In the rear of Gibson's Lancaster, the bomb aimer surveys the empty space where the bouncing bombs had rested only hours before. The memory of their release, the precise calculation of speed, altitude, and spin is etched into his mind. He can still see the bombs skipping across the Moan and Eder, arcs of death that defy conventional logic. Each man aboard understands the scale of their accomplishment, yet none allows themselves the luxury of celebration. Survival demands focus. Fatigue presses on the body like a weight, but the mind remains razor-sharp, calibrated instinct and procedure. Above, clouds begin to gather, their underbellies dark and brooding. The channel narrows below them, a corridor of gray water flecked with white caps, a corridor they must navigate with unerring precision. Gibson adjusts the throttles. seeking an optimal altitude to ride the turbulence without exposing the aircraft to undue risk. Every dip and rise of the plane sends subtle signals through the fuselage, a tactile reminder of how fragile their victory can be. Outside, the horizon is an uncertain line, blending sea and sky into one indistinguishable expanse. Suddenly, a flash of movement catches Gibson's eye. Far above, a lone Messerschmitt Bf 109 cruises with the sun glinting off its fuselage. The pilot is alert in an instant, hand gripping the control column as Gibson issues a terse command. Engines roar as the formation adjusts, evasive patterns executed with practiced precision. The Luftwaffe fighter arcs above, calculating speed, angle, and potential interception. In Gibson's cockpit, the crew moves as one organism, adjusting trim, toggling flaps, coordinating turns. Seconds stretch into eternity as predator and prey dance across the sky, a deadly ballet that can unravel everything they have fought to achieve. Meanwhile, the channel below churns in response to strong gusts, waves crashing against each other in chaotic rhythm. Each plane feels the pull of wind, the subtle shift of air currents, testing the limits of structural integrity. Gibson leans into the bank, eyes scanning the horizon, ears tuned to the faint, distant whine of the pursuing fighter. The men in the rear glance at each other with grim understanding. Every decision, every correction, can mean the difference between life and a watery grave. The human body is stressed to its limits, yet experience, training, and instinct converge to hold them steady. For the navigator, the tension is doubled. He tracks their course, cross-references landmarks visible through breaks and clouds, and calculates time to landfall, all while the aircraft responds to every evasive maneuver. Small errors could carry them miles off course, into flak zones, into the teeth of an unseen enemy. And even if they reach England, the channel itself remains treacherous. Cold, unpredictable, and vast, it has claimed many airmen whose bodies would never be recovered, their courage swallowed by the indifferent waters. As the squadron edges closer to friendly airspace, a sense of collective relief begins to emerge. Subtle yet pervasive, the low hum of engines, once a backdrop to tension, now carries a rhythm of endurance, a pulse that echoes survival. Yet relief is cautious. The men know that fatigue can breed complacency. One misjudged approach to the runway, one lapse in concentration, could undo hours of discipline and training. The squadron maintains formation, descending slowly toward the coast, wings level, eyes forward. Below, the coastline of Lincolnshire rises from the mist, pale and reassuring. Gibson's Lancaster is first a break from formation, aligning with the runway approach. Wheels touch tarmac with a soft jolt, and a quiet cheer rises from the cockpit, restrained yet palpable. The crew exhales as one, a collective release of tension held taut for hours. Behind them, the other Lancasters follow, landing in succession, each crew marked by fatigue, exhilaration, and an acute awareness of the night's cost. As they taxi to the dispersal area, Gibson allows himself a brief glance back toward the channel. The water glimmers faintly in the morning sun, calm once more, masking the chaos it had contained. Somewhere beneath that surface lie memories of their bomb's destructive path, a reminder of both the mission's success and its stark, human consequences. For a moment, silence reigns, punctuated only by the fading roar of engines and the distant clatter of ground crews preparing to refuel and inspect. The night's impossible innovation has been tested, executed, and survived. Yet the men of 617 Squadron know that history will remember not the engines, the bombs, or the calculations, but the courage, the nerves, and human lives that risked everything for a fleeting moment of triumph. Outside, the sun rises fully over Lincolnshire, casting long shadows on the airfield, as if acknowledging the daring acts of men who had just returned from the edge of legend. The airfield at Scampton is quiet now, bathed in a muted morning light that softens the edges of hangars and dispersal huts. May 17, 1943, has given way to a calm that feels almost unnatural, as if the earth itself is holding its breath after the tempest of night. Inside the briefing room, 617 Squadron assembles once more, faces pale, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, hands still trembling from the tension of the mission. The room smells of oil-wet uniforms and the lingering smoke of engines, olfactory echoes of the impossible journey just completed. Each man carries a private archive of the night's terror and triumph. The roar of Merlin engines, The hiss of flak, the sickening sight of water erupting under the force of Barnes Wallis' innovation. Wing Commander Guy Gibson is first to speak, his voice steady but carrying the weight of exhaustion and relief. The room listens, not merely to words, but to the cadence of command honed through relentless training and combat. Gibson recounts the flight, carefully noting the precise release points for the bouncing bombs, the altitude, and the speed maintained over the Moan and Eder dams. His language is technical, deliberate, yet it trembles with a subtle undercurrent of awe. For the men, these are not abstract details. They are tactile memories, relived with each syllable. The bombs themselves, the culmination of months of calculation, testing, and refinement, now exist as a vivid testament to human ingenuity, and the crew understands the magnitude of what they have unleashed. Outside, ground crews move silently, inspecting each Lancaster for structural damage, flak punctures, and engine strain. The machines that carried men across enemy skies are now quiet, inert, but their presence fills the hangars with a palpable energy. Each plane has a story etched into its fuselage, a narrative of survival, courage, and mechanical endurance. Technicians trace the rivets and seams with meticulous care, hands steady despite the thrill and horror that cling to the night's memory. These are men who understand the thin line between operational success and catastrophic failure. A single miscalculation, a misaligned bolt, could have turned triumph into tragedy. In the mess hall, the crew sits in subdued clusters, eating breakfast in silence. The conversation is sparse, punctuated by occasional murmurs of disbelief and the half-laughs of men attempting to release tension. Some stare out the windows at the awakening airfield, watching shadows stretch over the tarmac, tracing the flight paths that brought them home. Others replay the night in their minds with almost cinematic clarity. The sudden burst of flak over Ruhr, the bombers descending to near impossible altitudes, the exact moment the bouncing bombs struck their targets. Each man carries a unique mental imprint of the mission, a collage of fear, focus, and fleeting exhilaration. Reports begin to filter in from reconnaissance units and intelligence officers. Photographs of the Moan and Eder Dam show shattered walls, waters pouring through ruptured concrete, and the first visual evidence of success begins to crystallize the abstract into reality. For the crews, the images are both awe-inspiring and sobering. The destruction is spectacular, yet it is coupled with the knowledge of the human cost. Workers caught in the floodwaters, towns downstream enduring sudden chaos, an irrevocable shift in industrial capacity. The men grapple with the duality of their accomplishment. The mission has succeeded beyond expectation, yet the consequences are stark and undeniable. Gibson called for a debrief, the room now tense with anticipation. Each crew member recounts their experience, from precise navigation to the handling of evasive maneuvers under fire. The debrief is punctuated by the quiet hum of mental processing, the analytical dissection of every turn, every altitude correction, every calculated risk. It is here that the magnitude of Barnes Wallis' design is fully appreciated. A spherical bomb, spinning at incredible velocity, skipping across water, striking targets considered impregnable, a concept once deemed impossible, now realized with deadly precision. The men speak in hushed tones of mathematics and mechanics, yet their voices carry the weight of awe, respect, and disbelief. Outside the briefing room, the airfield begins to pulse with renewed activity. Maintenance crews ready aircraft for the next sortie. Fuel trucks rumble along tarmac, and the distant drone of engines signals the continuation of the war. Yet within the walls of Scampton, time seems suspended, a reflective pause after the storm. Gibson walks slowly among his men, his gaze steady, meeting eyes with those who survived, silently acknowledging their courage. There is no fanfare here, no loud celebration. Only the quiet, profound recognition of the boundary they have crossed, the extraordinary feat executed under fire, and the fragile balance that allowed them to return. The men step outside, letting the morning air fill their lungs, tasting the faint tang of exhaust and dew. The sky is pale, washed with sunlight, but the memory of the night remains etched in shadowed eyes and taut muscles. Some stare at the damaged bombers, silent prayers or thanks unspoken but felt deeply. Others look toward the horizon, contemplating the missions yet to come, the war still raging beyond these fields, and the uncertainty that awaits every man who climbs into a Lancaster. Survival is no longer a guarantee. It is a fragile gift granted for this day, this mission, this improbable success. In quiet corners, engineers and navigators discuss the nuances of Wallis' invention. Calculations are revisited, spins recalculated, altitudes debated. The innovation has changed the strategic landscape, and its implications ripple through the minds of men who understand both aviation and physics. The war has shifted subtly, yet profoundly, in the hours of darkness just past, and each man is acutely aware that they have been part of history, not in the abstract, but in living, breathing action. The emotional weight is tangible. Triumph mingles with exhaustion, exhilaration with somber reflection. The men of 617 Squadron have faced the impossible, executed the improbable, and returned to bear witness to the results. Yet as the sun climbs, shadows from the night remain. Every man carries a private reckoning, the understanding that bravery, precision, and innovation can coexist with risk, loss, and destruction. And the channel, calm once more, reflects back a pale sky, hiding beneath its surface the memory of both human ingenuity and its violent consequences. The skies over the Ruhr Valley have long since cleared, leaving behind a landscape forever altered by a single night of daring and precision. May 17, 1943, has become a date etched into the minds of men, a day where science, courage, and human will converge to rewrite the boundaries of possibility. From the airfield at Scampton, the morning sunlight glances off the remaining puddles of rain, the tarmac still slick, reflecting the silhouettes of Lancaster bombers that have returned from a mission. There is a quiet reverence in the way crews move about, hands brushing against fuselages, inspecting engines, tracing rivets. These machines are more than metal. They are witnesses, partners in a ballet of risk and brilliance. Every scar, every dent, every burn mark tells a story of human endeavor pressed against the unyielding weight of war. In the briefing room, Wing Commander Guy Gibson addresses his men once more, not with orders, but with reflection. His voice carries both pride and solemnity, resonating through the air like the echo of engines long stilled. The squadron listens, absorbing the gravity of the night and the implications that extend far beyond their personal triumph. Intelligence officers interject with reconnaissance photographs. The concrete walls of the Moan and Eder dams now gaping, fracture monuments to the power of innovation applied under pressure. The water that once pooled behind them cascades into the valley below, carrying with the evidence of strategic disruption. Men stare at the images, some whispering in disbelief, others gripping tables for support. The magnitude of success mingle with the burden of consequences. Outside, the world continues to awaken. Ground crews prepare additional aircraft for sorties yet to come. Fuel trucks rumble along tarmac, and distant engine roars punctuate the calm. But at Scampton, time is suspended, thick with reflection and the quiet hum of comprehension. The men of 617 Squadron move in subdued patterns, some seated, staring at floors or walls, others standing in contemplative clusters. Conversations are measured, technical, and filled with awe. Calculations of altitude, velocity, and bomb spin are discussed with reverence. The impossible physics behind Barnes Wallis' design has been proven in a night of extraordinary precision. The engineers' whispers of torque and centrifugal force mingle with memories of evasive maneuvers, of tracing the undulating contours of reservoirs at perilously low altitude, of hearing the hiss of anti-aircraft fire slicing the dark. Each recollection is vivid, immediate, almost tactile. Gibson steps outside, drawing in a long breath of morning air scented with oil, wet concrete, and a faint trace of smoke. He walks among his men, a silent witness to their exhaustion and exhilaration. There are no speeches, no fanfare, only the unspoken acknowledgement of what has been achieved. He watches pilots running hands over returned aircraft, navigators exchanging notes, gunners examining spent shell casings. Each man is carrying his own private reckoning. The interplay of human skill, technological innovation, and sheer daring that made success possible. The war continues beyond these fields, beyond this valley. Yet for these few hours, the impossible has been made tangible. Down the Ruhr, the floods rage, reshaping the valley, sweeping through town, factories, and fields. The disruption to German industrial production is immediate and severe. Historians and strategists alike will later cite this operation as a turning point in air power application, a demonstration that creativity, precision, and courage could alter the trajectory of conflict. Yet for those who flew the mission, the immediate reality is personal. The overwhelming relief of survival, the lingering adrenaline, and the haunting images of destruction they carried back to England. Each Lancaster that touched down at Scampton is a vessel of memory, bearing stories of ingenuity, terror, and human perseverance. In the hours following, the men disperse. Some retreat to barracks, silently writing letters or praying. Others move to technical workshops, revisiting calculations, considering improvements, mentally preparing for future missions that will demand even greater precision. The scale of Barnes Wallis' contribution is acknowledged quietly, almost reverently. His bouncing bomb has proven more than theoretical genius. It is a weapon forged from meticulous research, iterative testing, and a daring conviction that conventional wisdom could be defied. The instrument of destruction is also an emblem of human creativity, a reminder that ingenuity can shift the balance in even the most intractable circumstances. Back at Scampton, families and colleagues begin to trickle into perimeter. Relief is mingled with worry, greetings with apprehension. The men of 617 Squadron are greeted not only with admiration, but with the sober awareness that each mission carries risk and sacrifice. Their triumph will be celebrated, studied, and remembered, yet the personal cost, the fatigue, the terror, the constant brush with mortality, remains a silent companion. Gibson watches from a distance as these interactions unfold, recognizing that while history will immortalize the operation, the human toll is immediate, intimate, and indelible. By evening, the airfield is quiet once more. The sun dips behind distant hangars, casting long shadows across wet tarmac, and returning pilots gather for one final reflection. In hushed voices, they share observations, relive moments of near-miss imperfection, and acknowledge the extraordinary precision that has carried them through the night. There is laughter, muted and fragile, alongside a weighty acknowledgement of the destruction wrought. Each man understands that history is now intertwined with personal experience, the fusion of invention, courage, and consequence that defines the night's legacy. The story of the Moan and Eder dams, of bouncing bombs, of men who flew at impossible altitudes under fire, will endure. It will inspire future generations, inform military strategy, and stand as a testament to the intersection of human ingenuity and courage. But for now, the men walk among the shadows, carrying both pride and the haunting images of water, concrete, and fire. The war rages on, unrelenting. Yet the impossible has been achieved, the improbable has been realized, and the legend of 617 Squadron has been cemented in both history and memory. The valley sleeps, scarred and reshaped. The sky, once a theater of engines and tracer, now reflects only quiet clouds and pale sunlight. Yet in the hearts of those who survived, the echo of engines, the flash of bomb impact, and the hush of anticipation remain, a reminder that human ingenuity can defy expectation and alter the course of war. And somewhere in England, Wing Commander Gibson allows himself a rare smile, knowing that what seemed impossible has been done.